day after Pakistani security agencies harassed guests at the Indian High Commission's Iftar dinner in Islamabad, the Indian High Commission has issued a statement condemning the intimidation of guests, lodging a strong protest against the incident with the Pakistani government as well. In its statement, the Indian High Commission has given details about how guests faced unprecedented harassment and intimidation at the hands of Pakistani security agencies. It reads, and I quote, "The security forces stationed on the main road outside Hotel Serena rudely rebuffed and intimidated officers and diplomatic staff on the High Commission of India who tried to ascertain from the security personnel the reasons for the harassment of the guests. Some officials were jostled, pushed, abused and aggressively threatened with bodily harm." The statement further said that the chain of events not only violate basic norms of diplomatic conduct but are against all notions of civilized behavior. As of now, the Indian High Commission has requested the Pakistani government to urgently investigate the harassment of guests and has demanded that diplomats and officials of the Indian High Commission be allowed to discharge their functions without fear or harassment. Our special diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Subal now joins us on the phone line from Delhi with more details. Siddhant.
Well, Krishna, this is an absolute case of a big, huge diplomatic harassment, not only of the guests who were invited at the Iftar party hosted by the Indian mission in Islamabad, but also of the Indian diplomats who were there, who tried to ascertain the situation. We are now getting more information how Indian diplomats faced bodily harm by the security officials, by the agency officials, when these diplomats, Indian diplomats, try to ascertain why these guests are being stopped. They went outside. We also have visuals of their mobile phones being snatched. So this was the situation. Clearly, chaos. It's emerging. It was a chaos outside that hotel where the iftar was organized, and India, of course, has now strongly protested against what had happened on 1st of this month when the iftar was organized, and has called the Pakistani government to investigate the entire chain of events which happened. They have termed the entire incident ugly incident and goes against basic diplomatic norms. In fact, all notions of civilized behavior, that is what the release has said. This is not the first time that harassment has taken place, but this time the harassment has taken place at an unprecedented level and in front of the entire world. And remember, this was an iftar party. This was a non-political event in which more than 300 people, Pakistani nationals, whether they are parliamentarians, retired military personnel, media representatives, in fact, our WION's own correspondent Malik was inside and has confirmed the dire state yesterday evening when the iftar was called. And this was the iftar in which the Indian mission had called not only the Pakistani president, the prime minister, the foreign secretary, and in fact the speaker of the National Assembly as well. So clearly, while India wants to have normal ties with Pakistan, it seems, is indulging in activity that goes against the basic civilized norm of diplomatic norm. And we know that in the past also diplomatic harassment has taken place, but this is a new level of harassment of Indian diplomats and, of course, at events such as these, public events such as these, by the Pakistani agencies.
Siddhant Subal, our correspondent on the phone line with all those details. Siddhant, I also wanted to ask you we're constantly showing the visuals of what happened exactly, the incident of harassment that we're talking about, and it's what to say, extremely disappointing, because as you've been telling us, it's not the first time. It keeps happening, and Pakistan keeps saying it wants to have talks with India, and it's India which is refusing talks. Which is, if a country wants to have talks, isn't it then necessary that it learns to behave in a civilized fashion first?
Well, yes, of course, learn to behave in a civilized fashion, but clearly Pakistan has upped the ante instead and indulging in clearly street behavior, which we are getting from the visuals we are getting. We have seen how in the visuals the agency personnel are clearly pushing, showing people publicly in front of a well-known hotel in Islamabad. In fact, before the iftar was to take place, some of the people who were invited even got calls by the agency officials of not to attend the iftar, saying that if they go to iftar, they will be facing dire consequences. There were people who had come from far off places such as Lahore and Karachi, and they were intimidated, physically stopped from attending the iftar function by the agency people. In fact, there was a virtual siege that was laid on that hotel by the agency officials, which of course is unprecedented in known diplomatic norms. At least nobody has heard how agency people have tried to stop people to enter a hotel, because this was an event which was not organized in the Indian mission. This was an event which was organized in a public place, in a hotel, where the agency officials can easily stop people to go. This shows that the writ which runs by these agency officials is so large in Pakistan, and confirms what everyone knows, that how powerful the deep state is in Pakistan. And we do know that it's not only the guests but also the diplomats who faced a lot of harassment. Mobiles have been snatched of Indian officials, of Indian diplomats, and still haven't been returned.
Thank you, Siddhant, for joining us with those details.